we've reached the magic line. American Thanksgiving. And happy Thanksgiving to you. As I mentioned in the Pecorine video I just did, there's some work being done around the house. I apologize for any background noise, but we'll get through it. We got through it before, right? And it was worse than this, where they were actually sounded like they were invading the house. If you look at the leaders in the East, Tampa Bay right now, 22 games, 15 wins, 6 losses, 1 overtime loss, 31 points, and they're 7-3 in their last 10 games. Right neck and neck with them are the Toronto Maple Leafs at 15-7, 30 points, and they're 7-3 in their last 10 games. But the big surprise, Buffalo's 14-6-2, also has 30 points, and sits with 8-2 as their record in their last 10 games. Now, personally, I don't know how far Buffalo can go with this, but I do know this. They look like an excellent bet to reach the playoffs, and here's why. If they play 500 hockey from here, win one, lose one, the whole way out, they finish with 90 points. 90 points probably doesn't get you in the playoffs. But if they just finish, say, 4 or 5 games above 500 from here, gets you to 94, 95 points, excellent chance of reaching the playoffs. Leading the way in the Metro, and let's be honest, the Metro has the lowest point total of any leader with Columbus, 12-7-2, 26 points. They're 6-2-2 in their last 10, so they've been excellent over their last 10. Especially excellent over the last couple of weeks. The Rangers are nipping at their heels. They're 12-8-2 in 22 games. They've also got 26 points. They're, of course, a game back, or half a game back, if you use baseball terminology, because they've played that one extra game and they lost it. They're 8-1-1 in their last 10. Excellent record for them, and they're starting to beat some solid teams. The Washington Capitals are third in that division. They're 11-7-3. They have 25 points. They're only 1 point out of first. So we've been talking about how Washington is looking like they're in trouble and they're not playing very well. Well, here's the thing. They're 6-3-1 in their last 10. They've looked solid for the last week and a half, and they are definitely playing better. And they can win that division with an okay record. With less than 100 points, you may very well be able to win the Metro this year. The Metro is not what it was a couple years ago. Now, if you look at wildcard spots, Boston's got the number 1 wildcard with an 11-6-4 record. They're 5-3-2 in their last 10, including 1-1-2 in their road trip they just finished. The Montreal Canadiens are 11-7-4. They're the number 2 wildcard. They're 4-4-2 in their last 10. So the shine's kind of come off Montreal a little bit. So then the question becomes, well, which teams that are behind them are playing the best right now? In the last 10 games, Detroit Red Wings are 8-2. The Detroit Red Wings could end up making a push for the playoffs. Another 8-2 stretch from here, 16 wins out of 20, will probably get them into a playoff spot. Florida's 6-4 in their last 10. It just feels like they're losing all the time. They're not actually, just they have a hard time getting over that hump. And a 6-4 record in 10, they're not making up ground enough to legitimately look at this point like they're going to make the playoffs. Philadelphia's 5-3-2. The Islanders are 5-4-1. Carolina's 4-4-2. Ottawa and New Jersey are both 4-5-1. And Pittsburgh's 2-6-2. But everybody will tell you Pittsburgh's going to turn around. It's just a matter of time. And I think there's those who genuinely believe it out of hope, and there are those of us who genuinely believe it out of fear. But when I look at the East right now, honestly, everybody looks pretty solid. Not just overall, but when you look at their last 10. I do have questions about the Rangers being able to sustain this over a full season. Absolutely. And Montreal. And, yes, Boston. Boston's had a lot of injuries on the blue line. Bergeron's out for a month now. I do have questions about Boston being able to stay in. But who's going to replace them? Philly? Maybe. Islanders? Possibly. So we're in a situation right now where we have 5 teams in the Atlantic that make it. A couple months from now, we may have 5 teams from the Metro that would make it. So it's going to be very interesting. And again, Detroit, how real is their run? We'll see over the next few weeks. But right now, it looks pretty good. That win over Boston again. Boston's been dealing with a lot of injuries. I'm not trying to make excuses. They are what they are. When 5 out of your top 6 defensemen are hurt, it's not an excuse anymore. So we'll see how well they weathered that storm. Now, if we look out west, the Central Division is once again proving how strong it is. The Nashville Predators, 16-5-1, 33 points. They right now would be your President's Trophy winner Because they beat Tampa. That was the fight for first place. They're 7-2-1 in their last 10. Minnesota 13-7-2 for 28 points for second place. They're 6-4 in their last 10. They've looked a little shaky in some games recently, but they're still second in their division. Winnipeg, they've only played 20 games. They've got 12 wins, 6 losses, 2 overtime losses, 24 points. They're 6-3-1 in their last 10. The loss last night to Calgary is kind of disconcerting, but you know what? They're still top 3 in their division, and it'll be interesting to see how it turns out for them. This point total I got wrong here. I'm just looking at it on the board, and I'm like, that's not how those points add up at all. There, 26. That's better. That's better. Because I'm looking at the wild cards, I'm going, wait, that doesn't work. This is what happens when you stay up late working on 3 different boards before you go to bed. That's kind of what happens. Calgary leads their division with a 13-8-1 record. 27 points. They're 7-3 in their last 10. Calgary's the only team in that division that makes it look like a decent division. And I'm being honest, and I'm being bluntly honest. Because San Jose, who are 11-7-4 overall, 26 points for them. They're 5-4-1 in their last 10. And they are struggling to get a consistent game going. Absolutely. And who's third in this division? Anaheim's third. Yeah. 9-9-5. 4-3-3 in their last 10. So on the strength of winning 4 of their last 10, they've stepped into a playoff position. How does this happen? Glad you asked, because they're losing in overtime. They're not losing in regulation. Because they lose enough games in overtime and shootouts, Anaheim right now would make the playoffs. This is far and away the worst record of a team that would be in the playoffs right now. Because technically they've won 9 out of 23 games, and they would make the playoffs right now. And then when we get into the best of the rest, you realize they may very well make it by default. Colorado, 11-6-4. They have 26 points to themselves, and they're 4-4-2 in their last 10 games, and they have a better record than both San Jose and Anaheim. And finally, here's Dallas, 22 games, 11 wins, 9 losses, 2 overtime losses, 24 points. They're also 4-4-2 in their last 10. And they have more points than Anaheim. And they're only 2 back of San Jose. But both of these teams are behind Winnipeg. Winnipeg has 1 more win than does Colorado, and they've played 1 less game. And they've played 2 less games than Dallas, and they're 2 points ahead of them. So when you look at it, we may end up with a lot of teams with 100 points this year if things trend this way, or things will probably settle out and not be quite that lopsided. But when you look at the best of the rest in the West, Vegas has the best record of any team that's currently not in a playoff spot in their last 10 at 5-5. Arizona's next at 4-4-2. Then Edmonton, St. Louis, and LA all have 4-6 records in their last 10. Vancouver and Chicago, 2-6-2 in their last 10. The West is a disaster. It is an absolute unmitigated disaster right now. Which means that for the 8 teams that are in the playoffs, 7 of those teams, their fan bases should be very relieved that things are going the way they are in the West. But for Anaheim fans, who may very well want to see a change behind the bench, this is less reassuring. If I'm looking at the West and I'm looking at teams that could potentially fall out of the playoffs, Anaheim, clearly 9 wins in 23 games. I don't have a lot of faith in them right now. Dallas, their upward momentum seems to stall out often enough that I could see them falling out. And that's about it, because then you're asking yourself which teams are going to step in. And I don't have Arizona being one of those teams right now. They're close though. Arizona's close to Anaheim. But again, it's a consistency issue. Vegas is below 500. I can't in good faith put them in there. Vancouver's fallen out due to this huge losing streak they've got. I can't see Chicago being able to put together a playoff run. Edmonton is the interesting one in the West. Edmonton is absolutely the interesting one in the West in that there's a playoff spot right there. All you have to do is finish with more wins than losses, and you're in the playoffs. So we may see some teams in the Pacific take some risks with the idea that maybe they'll get that number 3 spot. Teams that, if they were in another division over here, might very well be in a rebuilding phase or at least a retool. But it's an interesting look at how things are right now. And honestly, I'd be very surprised if most of these teams don't make the playoffs. Now, last year it was 11. Every year before that it was 12 or 13, heading back to the last lockout. I really think probably, I'll say 12. I'll say 12 out of these 16 teams will end up making the playoffs. I would go with, if I had to pick 4 that are going to miss, Dallas and Anaheim in the West. Potentially Boston in the East. I'm saying Boston intentionally instead of Montreal because I don't want that kind of flack. But I will say that Boston, due to all the injuries, I could see them falling out. And, between the Rangers and Montreal, which one I think could be overachieving so far in the season and could end up falling back. The Rangers had a lot of concerns early in the year, and this 12-8-2 record hides that 4-7-1 start. And yeah, so I don't necessarily think they were as bad as that start, but I don't necessarily see them as being as good as this 8-1-1 record over their last 10 either. And there are, when I did that video on who needs Jack Hughes the most, there were a lot of Rangers fans that said, well, we need him. And I don't disagree. If the Rangers were still down among these teams, I'd have the Rangers right near the top of the list. But for right now, they're in the playoffs, and they're handing Jack Hughes off to somebody else. And I do wonder, as I said, the Rangers are kind of a rebuilding team. This has been a nice, fun run. We'll see how real it is coming out of the Thanksgiving break. But let me know your thoughts, as always, in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.